Hey everybody, it's Atheist for the Cause here, and I wanted to bring a special report to you about the legalization of marijuana and the impacts it could have on the United States, especially economically. And I think that Trump should step in and legalize marijuana, at least medicinally, but potentially recreationally. I used to be against it, well, recreationally. I was for it medicinally, but I've come around quite a bit because, well, and there are a bunch of reasons. I've got 8 reasons listed here that I'll go through. But my notes say will happen. It'll happen anyways. So Trump might as well score the political points, right? And we can by Trump. Trump can help the legislation be less extreme by joining the conversation rather than staying out of it and fighting it. The legalization of marijuana will create an immense amount of jobs. It'll boost the economy like crazy. There are plenty of medicinal benefits proven at this point. You could do it in a way that would restore power to the states, and you could reduce Medicaid costs, actually, from what I read. And you can raise lots of tax revenue. So let's go over some of this. As you can see here, there were a bunch. This isn't back in the 2016 presidential election. In Arkansas, it passed for medical marijuana, 53 to 47%, basically, a solid margin. Arizona, it failed barely, 48 to 52%. It's important to note they already were legal medicinally, but they were trying to legalize it. And I'll open this up for you completely. But one thing is, there were some issues with this because I think some people objected to a 15% tax on retail marijuana sales. And then, and they even earmarked it that it had to be allocated to public health and education. And then you had to be 21, and there were limits on growth. And so there was a lot to this, and established a Department of Marijuana licensing and to control. And I think some people were worried about that. And then it provides local governments with the authority to regulate and limit marijuana business. So there were even some people who were for the legalization of recreational marijuana. They could still object to this. But it was close, and there are a lot of older retirees that, grew up being taught that marijuana is, a bad drug, gateway drug, all those kinds of things, and the younger generation is much more likely to be for the legalization of marijuana. So it's not actually a huge surprise that Arizona came up short. The legalization of marijuana for adults over 21, this is in California. It passed by a good margin, about 11%, 11.5%. Then we have the legalization of medical marijuana in Florida, and it passed by like 40%. You have in Massachusetts, they regulated and taxed it, but they also legalized it in this one. Passed pretty healthy. Maine, it passed very slim margin, 0.4%. But it did pass to completely legalize marijuana in Maine. That was a big one. A lot of people didn't expect that. The initiative to expand access to medical marijuana, it won by 15%. So basically, we still have 2 more. the Compassionate Care Act in North Dakota. That's a medicinal marijuana bill or amendment, and it passed. Or actually, it was a bill, I think. Then you have Initiative to Regulate and Tax Marijuana, and it passed in Nevada by it was by 9%. So marijuana went 8-1, and so and the one that it lost was barely in a state that it's already legal medicinally. So the writing's on the wall. This is going to be legal eventually. If you look at this map, you can see where all the light green is medicinal use is legal, and all the dark green you can also use that recreationally. And over half the country it's now legal in. So Alaska and Hawaii also marijuana is legal. So and here's a list. There are 27 plus there's Washington D.C. A lot of places say 28 states legalized it. I don't know if they're missing one here, or if the other places are including Washington D.C., because this one doesn't include Washington D.C. as it's not a state. But then there's also 7 for recreational use. And then basically Pennsylvania, by the way, had, outside of the ballots here, in April they legalized marijuana. So then we go down, and there was something else I wanted to show you here. So this goes to the money. Marijuana-specific tax revenue in Colorado hit $70 million. That's nearly twice what the state got from alcohol tax. So, as you can see, the government can bring in tons of money. I mean, imagine a bigger state, what they bring in. In the United States, sales of legal marijuana hit $2.7 billion last year, up from $1.5 billion in 2013. So in 3 years, effectively, you nearly doubled how much marijuana was being sold. And this is an estimate by ArcView Group. If full legalization were to occur in all 50 states and D.C., the U.S. marijuana retail market could top $35 billion in revenue by 2020, according to estimates from independent research firm Green Wave Advisors. That's a lot of green. Now, there are lots of jobs that could be created too from that. This says that 123,000 full-time jobs have been created, 43,000 in California, 23,000 in Colorado, and about 23,000 in Washington. And these are good paying jobs. If we go to this article, it says that basically 250,000 jobs could be created by 2020. And because manufacturing jobs are expected to dip by over 800,000 by 2024, marijuana could actually pass manufacturing jobs. So marijuana as an industry is becoming will probably be bigger than manufacturing by 2024. To go through this article, it gives more detail on the jobs. While we see a potential drop in total number of U.S. jobs created in 2017, as reported by Kiplinger, as well as overall expected drop in GDP growth, the cannabis industry continues to be a positive contributing factor to growth at a time of potential decline. We expect the cannabis industry's growth to be slowed down to some degree in the next 3 to 5 years. However, with the project total market sales to exceed $24 billion by 2025. and the possibility of almost 300,000 jobs by 2020. That is a lot of jobs. To give you some insight, like, Trump wants to create 25 million jobs in 10 years. And that's a really ridiculous amount of jobs to create. That's about twice as many as Obama created. So if Trump could actually create that many jobs, it would be a huge accomplishment. And in order to do that, he's going to need to open up new markets. One of those new markets could be expanding the legalization of marijuana. And if they can get 300,000 jobs by 2020, how many could they have, basically within 10 years? This could be growing exponentially, especially if all 50 states were legal, recreationally and medicinally. You could have millions of jobs. I kind of calculated it out before, and I don't know, just roughly guesstimating. Don't quote me on this or anything, but I came up with the number 2 million. About, I felt was a fairly conservative number that was attainable. The legal cannabis market was worth an estimated $7.2 billion in 2016, and is projected to grow at a compound annual growth rate of 17%, a decline from 28% in 2016. The medical market projected to grow at 13% through 2025, growing from $4.7 billion in 2016 to an estimated $13.3 billion in 2020. During the same period, adult use sales are projected to grow at a 25% CAGR from $2.6 billion to $11.2 billion. Through projections based solely on the markets having passed medical and adult use legalization initiatives as of January 2017, but not including assumptions for additional states which may yet pass legalization before 2025. And I would argue it's likely that some would. So there's a huge opportunity for Trump here, in terms of his job promise. Now, the medical benefits are obvious, from, everything from getting better sleep to just relaxation and, pain, dealing with pain and things like that. Some epileptic issues have been solved. A lot of this is still in experimental stages, but it seems to be helping with epilepsy potentially, and just all kinds of things. I've heard that it helps potentially with asthma. Someone with asthma said that once they started using marijuana, which they can legally use, prescribed by a doctor, that their entire health became better. They started sleeping better. They started being more active. Their asthma, basically was gone, and I believe they said that they had this stomach problem that was basically gone overnight. And it was a significant stomach problem. But then I found this blogger, and he's apparently went to law school, so he must know his stuff to some extent in terms of the law perspective. And he's been kind of raising the warning flags that Trump and Sessions might crack down. But then there are some articles that kind of show that they haven't cracked down. But this one is about the Medicaid enrollees. So it says that in the past 20 years, 28 states and the District of Columbia have passed some form of medical marijuana law. Using quarterly data on all fee-for-service Medicaid prescriptions in the period of 2007 to 2014, we tested the association between those laws and the average number of prescriptions filled by beneficiaries. We found that the use of prescription drugs in fee-for-service Medicaid was lower in states with medicinal marijuana laws than in states without such laws in 5 of the 9 broad clinical areas we studied. And if all states had a medical marijuana law in 2014, we estimated that total savings for fee-for-service Medicaid could have been $1 billion. So they could say, now Medicaid is huge. It's like a $500 billion program, but every little bit helps. And apparently this could save around $1 billion just from, prescription drugs being used less often. These results are similar to those in a previous study we conducted regarding the effects of medical marijuana laws on the number of prescriptions with the medical population. Together, the study suggests that in states with such laws, Medicaid and Medicare beneficiaries will fill fewer prescriptions. Now, I do have to add the caveat that there could be health problems that stem from this, and that could raise costs, but there are some places we can save. And then there was this one where I told you he had been pretty critical and assumed that Trump would be bad for medical marijuana. But in fact, if I click this graph, it shows that banks are working with dispensaries more often. So Trump was elected in November of 2016. As you can see, it was on an upward trend, but then it leveled out after Trump got elected. And then as they kind of saw how he was acting, it slowly eked up. And then as of March 17th of 2017, it shot up again. So they must be pretty comfortable with what Trump has been doing and what Sessions have been doing, at least in the short term. So, and then I wanted to go over basically one last thing right here, because there have been some lawsuits and things like that. Like the travel ban was heard in the 9th District. You might hear it or the 9th Circuit, they call it. And there was a marijuana case that was heard in the 10th Circuit. And I don't think a lot of people know exactly what that means. So I just wanted to show the map that each area is color coded. So this is one, and it includes Puerto Rico. That's the 1st Circuit. 2nd Circuit is here in the light blue. 3rd Circuit is here with the Virgin Islands. The 9th Circuit is huge, including this entire area: Alaska, Hawaii, Guam, and the Mariana Islands. And the 10th District had this ruling that basically protected individuals from prosecution. But the important thing to remember is that doesn't extend outside of their circuit. So when you have an appellate court strike something down or limit the government, they can still go after people in other circuits. And that's why you want the U.S. Supreme Court to hear it too. But that's what I've got for you now. Basically, I think that Trump I think the way he should legalize marijuana is by basically giving it to the states. It would fulfill his campaign promise of letting the states decide, and basically pass a law that says, you won't intervene effectively, and that states decriminalize it federally so that you're not forcing it upon the states, but at the same time, states can be confident and businesses can be confident the federal government won't go after them. And back to the scoring political points. If you don't do this, you're going to give the political points to the Democrats. And there's just no reason to do that, because if you try to block this, you're going to fail. And they'll just go and do a constitutional amendment if they have to, because support for marijuana is like recreationally is over 70% from polls I saw, and the highest poll was like 92% for medicinal marijuana. So they have the support to just amend the Constitution through the states if they really want to. And they can completely bypass the federal government. And so, get your seat at the table, do this the right way, create the jobs. Nobody knows how to legalize this better than Trump, because of the economics of it. Trump understands the economics, and take the credit for the jobs. You can't really take the credit for the jobs if you've been fighting it the entire time, and then it gets passed despite you, and then you say, oh, well, it created 2 million jobs in my presidency. Well, sorry, but you fought it. So anyways, I think there's huge opportunity here. I am really worried about the long-term consequences of legalization. I think there are issues that people overlook, but overall, we can deal with that later, and we can still spread awareness about harmful effects, and trying to prevent people using marijuana is fine. It's just don't use it habitually, because that'll cause big time problems. So if you educate people on the harms of habitual use, then you can prevent a lot of it. And if you select the right age, such as maybe 21 is the right age, and that's what's been largely used around the United States, then you can hopefully have the kids hold off until they're 21. Maybe 19 or 20 is the right age, so that it's kept out of the high schools, but then people in college can use it. Anyways, so that's what I have for you guys today. Marijuana legalization is going to happen whether you like it or not, so might as well get on board and give your input on the best way to legalize it. Make money, reduce the debt, reduce the deficit, and create tons of jobs. What's not to like, right? Have a good one, guys.